So let's see, photo 1. This is no shirtless pics. This is just him in a tank. And this is photo 2, cruising between cycle 4 and 5. I have to be over 18 to see this? All right. Boom. Wow. I'm glad I consented to that. What's up, guys? Derek, moreplates.com. Today we are going to be outlining another anecdotal report from the Anabolics community, essentially. So a guy who self-admittedly has a very high body weight slash body fat percentage. He's not in an ideal, zone necessarily, and he is outlining kind of his experience taking multiple cycles with a body composition baseline that many would consider to be potentially counterproductive to progress, potentially not even justify use to begin with before getting to a reasonable body fat percentage. So anyways, we're gonna get into it, and I haven't even read it yet, so I'll have my feedback intertwined, but we shall see how it is. So I got sent this a while ago. It's been on my to-do list for months, to be honest. So this was 4 years of gear usage at a high body weight. Cycle experiences, pics, vids, and thoughts. So anyways, here he has an edit, which I guess is, his response to the comments he got on this original post. So basically talks about what he thinks he needs to do in the future. We'll kind of circle back to that after I see the main meat and potatoes of this shit. So he says, I'm going to try to structure this as best as possible. This write-up encompasses roughly from August 6, 2016 to present. Unfortunately, I do not have that many photos, records of when I first started, and I do not remember the exact details of all my cycles. These are my general experiences. I will include what videos and photos I can. This is meant to be educational and somewhat interesting. I do not advocate anyone to follow what I did and make many mistakes along the way. So the reason why stuff like this is so good, because it shows you often what not to do, stuff that people will commonly do and then realize their mistakes, circle back, ideally publicize it, and or tell as many people as they can what not to do in order to avoid the same ramifications happening to them. So this sounds like it could be good. If starts to get more interesting at section 7 labeled cycle 4 when I started tren, the good old tren baloney. Please look down to the frequently asked questions section. I try to add as much as I could there that I may have missed in the main write-ups. I'm not good at posing and I'm not a photographer, and I know, holy disclaimers, and I know most of these pics are not the best quality. Background, stats, currently 25, male, body weight, roughly 248 pounds, 5'8", lifts, 5'15", 365, 5'15". When I started using, 21 years old, body weight, roughly 210 pounds, 315, 275, 405. Just graduated with a doctorate in a medical profession, starting a new job in that field soon. I worked all throughout undergraduate and graduate school and supported myself lifting. Athletic background, played a variety of sports. First serious foray into athletics came in high school when he joined the swim team. It was hard. Definitely formed me into who I am today. He learned the basics of weight training from his coach, doing whole body circuits. Coming out of high school, he was 135 pounds, soaking wet. So let's see what that looks like here. See if this picture is still okay. So not the best shot, we can just see you in baggy-ish black clothes. This doesn't really show us fucking anything, to be honest, but better than nothing. So obviously you could see, skinny dude. And had amazing cardiovascular endurance, but not much muscle mass. Squat was 135, bench roughly 155. Going to undergrad, I decided that I wanted to be big and strong, so I made a commitment to lift hard. First year, 2013 to 14, I pretty much did bro splits. The next 2 years, 2014 to 16, I ran 531 and some of its variations, mostly BBB, which I don't know what the fuck that is. I'm sure somebody in the comments does, so comment it down there if you know what that is. And added mass and muscle and brought myself up to the maxes I mentioned above in my stats. During undergrad, I went from roughly 150 to 210 pounds. Looking back, I definitely overbulked, should have cut down to about 180 to 185 before hopping on, but I was obsessed with size and putting up big numbers. The most important things I learned before hopping on was how to stick with a program and how to eat. Gear and cycle history, quick look. I've done 6 total cycles, cycled on and off with just test and an oral for the first 2 cycles. Started blasting and cruising with 3rd cycle, If you guys don't know what blasting and cruising is, basically it's you're basically on all the time. Your cruise is supposed to just be like TRT. Some people's cruise is more like a mini cycle for other people, but it is essentially putting yourself in a state of super physiological anabolic exposure for a set duration of time. After your body's been taxed for a while and it's time to take a break, you go down to a cruise dose, which kind of like maintains your super physiological amount of tissue without actually going to natural and trying to PCT. So you're like artificially maintaining, you know, either therapeutic replacement and or, you know, in most cases, slightly more than that. So anyways, blasting and cruising with started with the third cycle, doing it for roughly 2.5 years. I've only ever run test, tren, and anadrol. So presumably because this guy gives a shit about his lift so much, maybe that's why he kind of gravitated to those compounds. These are very popular choices for powerlifters especially. I have dosed on the higher end, but nothing over 1 gram for any one compound. Cycle 1, basic test cycle, 500 mgs test, intramuscular twice a week for 16 weeks. Cycle 2, test C, cypionate 500 milligrams twice a week. I'm assuming he means 500 per week split into twice a week injections. I would highly doubt he'd be doing 1 gram off the bat, obviously. But anyways, I just want to clarify that. So cycle 2, 500 mgs a test, 50 milligrams of anadrol, daily starter for first 4 weeks. You can tell this guy is in a medical field because he literally writes this fucking oral administration as PO. So he says he cycled on and off for the first 2 cycles with appropriate time off in PCT, got post-cycle bloods, recovered fine each time, not much to report. They were basic test cycles and both went well, nothing weird happened. Ran 5-3-1 for a couple cycles each time, added weight onto my maxes. Body weight probably increased to roughly 230 pounds on cycle. When I came off, dropped to 222, 225. AI protocol was 0.25 or half a milligram of anastrozole, which is also known as Arimidex, on the days he injected. I do not think I'm a heavy aromatizer despite my body weight. I have a pretty good idea of my high estrogen sides, I'm assuming. Oily skin, really sweaty, fatigue, and low, dry as fuck lips, fatigue, symptoms. I tend to prefer my estradiol a bit on the higher side. I use this AI protocol for all my cycles. Cycle 3, test 750 milligrams for 16 weeks, anadrol 100 milligram Kickstarter for 4 weeks per day. This cycle was start of blast and cruise. To me, test around the 700 to 800 milligram mark is a good sweet spot. I still feel like I can control estradiol and blood pressure decently and get all the good benefits. Increasing test did help with strength. I ran a couple cycles of 5-3-1 again and further increased my numbers. Not much more to report than the first 2 cycles. Same AI routine, body weight increased to roughly 235 on cycle and dropped to 228 cruising. At this point, I cruised on roughly 125 milligrams of test and felt great on it. AI regimen while cruising was 0.25 milligrams on injection days or once a week. Here's a photo of me around that time in normal clothes. All right, let us see. All right, so looking more housey than when he was a rail, obviously. I'm digging the dog cat shirt, bro. But anyways. Okay, so cycle 4, test 500 milligrams twice weekly, Trenace 72 milligrams daily for 12 weeks. Holy fuck. So off the bat, 500, half a gram of tren per week off the bat of ACE too. That is, that's big. So this is when I boarded, the tren train and it was rough. On test alone, as I had done previously, the gear was always manageable, and for me, there was much to worry about, and I could just enjoy it. On tren, it felt like a whole other stress was added to my life. Not only is pinning every day annoying, but I definitely got hit with the tren sides. I go into these below, but to note is that in my later tren cycles, I switched to Tren E and had a much better experience. I originally planned on running the cycle for 16 weeks, but ended it early around 12 weeks, or at 12 weeks. I don't know why I said around. On cycle, my body weight increased to 240 to 242 pounds. And cruising back down to roughly 235, 238, the whole trend, fat melting and recomping is definitely affected at a high body weight. And while I did see some leaning out, it was not a major change. Yeah, so the trend fat melting is something that just simply is not that insane. You know, if you're melting fat, your diet and energy expenditure is conducive to it. The trend is a great recomp drug at antagonizing glucocorticoid receptors, preventing muscle catabolism, as well as helping to kind of give a 1 + 1 = 3 effect with your, you know, backbone of testosterone, but it's not going to melt fat. You know, I've gotten fat on tren many times. It's not that fucking hard, to be honest. I don't know why it gets this reputation as like a fat melter. Like, yeah, you can recomp a lot, I guess, and it's pretty dry. So in terms of what you look like when you're on it, it seems more like a, you know, a cosmetically pleasing look. So you could think, oh, I'm just melting all this fat, when in reality, you're just gaining muscle and disproportionately not gaining fat, and it's just really clean looking. There's no significant bloat. And in a cut, you know, again, the muscle you save sort of when you're losing weight is quite helpful. So anyways, you know, tren's good. Obviously your tren is effective, I should say. Not good necessarily overarchingly, but yeah, you can still get fat easily on tren. That's a huge myth. Tren side, sleep issues. I tossed and turned constantly, could not fall asleep. I would wake up roughly 3 times a night, be drenched in sweat. I ended up taking hydroxyzine, 25 milligrams PO nightly, and that did help, but I still rarely had a solid night's sleep. This guy's writing it like we're reading a fucking research paper. Mental issues, anxiety, paranoia, anger, etc. I am a generally easygoing person, and on test, I never felt like I had significant mood changes. On tren, I felt constantly on edge. While I never had roid rage, definitely snapped on a few people, including my partner. Go figure. Over insignificant things. On this board, people often mention that their tolerance for BS was decreased, and I can relate. For example, if I ordered Chipotle ahead and it was not ready by the assigned time window, I would practically be shaking and demand extra guac on the side, chips, etc. Mood issues were always 10 times worse if I was hungry, and I would get really touchy and jealous over my partner. Jealous, classic. In general, I will say this: steroids do not necessarily cause mental issues, but if you have pre-existing mental issues or conditions or tendencies, tren will definitely exacerbate them and bring them to the surface. Yup. I am pretty sure that I have undiagnosed BPD or anxiety or something, and tren definitely made it worse. Note the hydroxyzine I was taking for sleep did help these effects because it is sedating and it has a long half-life, so I would still be feeling it the next day. Sex stuff. Horniness. I fucked a furry, etc. Tren 100% makes me a horny bastard, and my partner could give me an erection with a look. This side effect sort of goes hand in hand with what I mentioned above in mental issues. Tren is not going to suddenly make you want to get pissed and shat on if you were not into that before, but if you had certain tendencies and or fantasies before, I will admit I often stray into some questionable porn that you attempted to bury deep into your soul, then yes, they may come to the surface. Yeah. Heartburn. Tren did give heartburn, especially at night. I did not take any medications for this, just controlled my diet before bed. Physiological stuff. Labs. Tren wrecked my lipids and took them a long time to recover. Tren ups my blood pressure bad. I take lisinopril 20 milligrams and amlodipine 5 milligrams on tren to keep myself at 120 systolic, 80 diastolic. So if I was to choose a blood pressure management technique on tren, well, first of all, I wouldn't be on 500 tren, obviously, but, you know, let's just say that's impossible to get around for whatever reason. You know, I would be looking at an ARB, angiotensin receptor blocker, which we've discussed on the channel many times. I think it is superior to something like lisinopril. And I think, honestly, anybody on exogenous anabolics in general should be looking at proactive deployment of an ARB, regardless if they're blasting or cruising or whatever. Personally, I use 40 milligrams of telmisartan per day, and I don't even need it, to be honest. I'm 120/80 without it, but I use it anyway. And if I was on cycle, I would definitely, potentially even be using a more potent ARB. I guess it depends what I was using. If I was on tren and I was having a lot of issues, I doubt, you know, telmisartan might not even be either a high enough dose and or you might need a more potent ARB. So definitely something to look at if you are trying to avoid cardiac remodeling, trying to avoid the negative ramifications of blood pressure elevation. ARB is definitely the first line of defense in my opinion. And then after that, there's obviously other things that, if warranted, you should probably be looking at your cycle design, to be honest, because you probably shouldn't need more than that to begin with. But there are other things you can look at after that, but ARB is the first line in the chain of command, in my opinion, for ancillaries. Dopamine prolactin started pramming around week 8 or 9 and titrated up to 1 milligram daily. I started because it was taking forever to come. It did help, but I Felt it never quite went away. I took the Prami at night. It was not pharma, did not feel too many negatives from it. Titrated it slowly, which helped. Positives of trend. Strength, definitely upped it very well. My maxes definitely increased. I ran 5-3-1 cycles again. Just feeling great in the gym. Pumps, energy, tossing around heavy weight and ferocity. Sex drive, see above, it was great. I would highly recommend having a steady friends with benefits or a partner, significant other, or else you will go crazy. Video of 505 deadlift during cycle 4. Okay, let's see the shit. All right, here he is. So yeah, it definitely is high body fat percentage is definitely correct. So photo 1 and 2 of me cruising 150 milligrams between cycle 4 and 5. And the reason I say this is because a lot of people would say, okay, your body is not primed for growth necessarily when you are at the body fat percentage that we just saw. You know, if anything, you might say you are selling yourself short if you start at that kind of a baseline. So let's see, photo 1. This is no shirtless pics. This is just him in a tank. And this is photo 2, cruising between cycle 4 and 5. I have to be over 18 to see this? All right. Boom. Wow. I'm glad I consented to that. So anyways, cycle 5, test C 500 milligrams twice a week, Trenny 100 milligrams twice a week. So this cycle, I wanted to really feel the trend magic and ran at 700 milligrams. Holy fuck. I know on this board, people have different thoughts about test higher than trend or vice versa. I felt fine doing it this way. I felt much better on 700 milligrams of Trenny than 500 milligrams of Tren A. Most notably, the mental issues and sleep problems were much less pronounced. I would still use some hydroxyzine before bed, but it was not every day. The effects on blood pressure, bloods, prolactin were the same. I stuck with the same aromatase inhibitor, blood pressure management, drugs, I'm assuming, and Prami protocol as before. And I did feel amazing in the gym during the cycle, and I set my max bench of 365 pounds and max squat of 505 during the cycle. All right, so there's a link to it. So let's see. No spotter. Fuck, dude. Dude, going for a max with no fucking spotter. That is ballsy. So anyways, and then this is the 505 squat. Let's see this. It's like weird watching with no sound. It's just like some fucking dead air video that I'm watching. Boom. That was heavy. All right, so photo of start of cycle versus towards the end. So this is the start, and this is the end of the cycle, apparently. All right, so where are we at now? Cycle 6, test 850 milligrams twice a week for 16 weeks. Trenny 500 milligrams twice a week. 50 milligrams Anadrol for the first 4 weeks. COVID threw this cycle off the rails. I was originally planning on trying to up my squat max, but that all went out the window. However, I still wanted to do the cycle, so I decided that I would try to do a mini cut. I'd been thinking about it for a while, and now seemed like a good time for a workout routine. I bought some sandbags and was able to get a decent work in. But I mainly upped my cardio and core work from pretty much nothing to almost daily. Now at the end of the cycle, part of me thinks I should have saved the gear, but then I am also glad I ran it, because to me, it seems that I lost little to no muscle mass on upper body with limited equipment and training abilities. Here are some pretty current photos. All right, let's see the photos here. All right, now let's see the next one. He says, it seems that I made some progress and I feel better overall doing more cardio. Looking ahead, I am going to cruise for a long while and do try to keep upping the cardio. Frequently asked questions. Do you regret starting at 21? Not really. I would most likely do it again if I had to do over. I do think it's worth waiting until, if you are not 100% invested, if working out and fitness are not a serious part of your life, you do not have solid years of experience under your belt, then do not start. Also, at a young age, it is difficult to think about the implications like being on TRT for the rest of my life, etc. However, at this point, I accept it. In addition, again, circling back to the whole what I wish I knew before I started steroids thing that I've done the video on multiple times, the likelihood you're going to understand pharmacology enough to actually make the most use of this shit at 21, very low. Most people don't get it. I understand though that there is, the argument for early exposure when you can tolerate drugs and banking up that myonuclei for then later in life getting away with less, when you wouldn't be able to kind of endure the drugs. There's kind of arguments for both ways, frankly, and they sort of both make logical sense. But ideally, you want to be at a happy medium where you can actually tolerate the shit and you know what you're doing. So start researching early, start lifting naturally early, start mastering diet, nutrition, sleep hygiene, etc. early, training practices, etc. And researching pharmacology, understanding how the body works, the HPTA, how hormone suppression works, stress on organ systems, how to attenuate stress on your cardiovascular system, etc. That's the kind of shit you need to know before you get into this. And most people don't when they start this early, frankly. Neither did I. And that is why I'm here fucking making videos. Am I worried about fertility since starting young and doing blasting crews? Yes, it does worry me, but my partner and I do not 100% want a child, and there are enough stories out there of people making full recovery. Why don't you run other compounds or more stacks? I do not think it is necessary. I always meant to go slow when starting gear, and I see people stacking 4 compounds for their second or third cycle and think they are fools. I use gear because lifting is my major source of stress relief, and looking muscled up gives me confidence. I enjoy being able to crush workouts daily, the quick recovery and high sex drive. However, I do not plan on competing in bodybuilding, and even if I did, I would not run crazy stacks. If you're serious about competing and bodybuilding is your life, then by all means, blast to your heart's content, but get a real coach with real experience and do not rely on strangers on the internet. Future cycles. I plan on continuing with moderate to slightly heavier test cycles with the occasional trend. Never plan on exceeding 700 milligrams for as long as I can. That's a fuck ton, dude. Although I like orals, I am concerned with long-term liver health. You're fat. Yes, yes, I know I am. And I know I should lean down for my health. To be honest, I've always preferred the off-season bodybuilder or even strongman look. I like being swole, and my partner likes it as well. However, for the sake of blood pressure and joints, I am upping the cardio as much as I can. I do regret being obsessed with gaining mass when I was starting and getting blinded by bro science and cardio kills gains. Yeah, I think a lot of bro science has kind of permeated through the industry, like even, like fasting, for example. Obviously something that is not productive to muscle growth necessarily in the short term, but in the long term, I think the ability to engage in cellular repair / cleanup and certain things that can improve your insulin sensitivity kind of lead to more longevity in the muscle growth aspect and can actually keep you leaner for longer and growing in a more optimal state before you kind of like burn out and or need to approach a phase where you have to kind of fix shit necessarily. So I think that fasting is going to become something more incorporated in the future for the autophagy, mainly for people who are seeking more longevity in their exposure to this shit. So at least that's what I think, stuff like that, as well as, cardio, obvious, keeps you healthier, helps nutrient partitioning, basic shit like that a lot of people don't consider. They just think, oh, you're burning calories that you could otherwise, be using for like muscle growth, when it's not really the case. Let's see. So anyways, going down to the next part. Diet consists mainly of chicken, beef, rice, pasta, eggs, bacon, cheese, and peanut butter. Wow, that's quite the combo. Chicken, beef, rice, pasta, eggs, bacon, cheese, and peanut butter. I guess that's kind of a classic combo at the start, but then bacon, cheese, and peanut butter. I also eat fruits, apples, and bananas, mostly, and some veggies. When I was amassing bulk, natty and undergrad, I was probably eating 4,000 calories per day. Looking back, I probably should have bulked more slowly. In general, my diet does not change all that much between blasting and cruising. When I'm on a blast, I will try to get more protein, eat chicken 3 to 4 times daily instead of 1 to 2 times. Currently, I eat roughly 3,300 calories per day, supportive meds. This is the same thing he said before. Orals, I take Tudka. On orals, he takes Tudka at least 500 milligrams, but up it to 1,000. The past year, I've been on finasteride, 1 milligram per day. Is that going to do anything against the trend he's using or the anadrol? Not at all, but it will help with the testosterone, 5-alpha reducing to DHT. Supplements, whey protein, vitamin D, sometimes fish oil. Effects on hair. Hair is 100% taking damage. Well, yeah. Looking through the pics throughout the post, and you may be able to see the thinning. If not, look here. Okay. All right. Doesn't look that bad there. Okay, well, I definitely can see it now. I have come to terms with it. I would rather be huge and bald than small. Well, there are definitely more hair-safe ways you could approach it. For example, definitely not running Tren at 700 milligrams or Anadrol at 100 would be a start. Blah, blah. Something genetic potential. None of my family are big people. Naturally, I would be pretty thin. I do not think I am a super responder to gear or anything. It does certainly work, but I needed to put in the work, obviously. No one can really know his own genetic potential, but do not use as some weird justification. If you want to take the extra steps to get big, then do it, as long as you have a solid base in lifting. Advice for starting gear users: never neglect cardio or core work. Calm the fuck down about your post-injection pain. Unless it's oozing, pus, or you have a bad fever, give it a few days. I guess that's fair. Read the fucking wiki. Most of your questions will be answered on there. Everyone responds differently, so asking, will cycle A or cycle B work better for me, is moot. Also, most of this is trial and error. Run a couple cycles and get comfortable. Never up a dosage and add a new compound at the same time. Run test as long as you can. Trend is nothing to fuck with. You may want to just avoid it. Well, I think that is it. Thank you for reading and hope you had a laugh or learned something. May your pumps be sick. 278 comments. As much as I disagree with everything this guy has done in regards to steroid use and lifestyle, this is a relevant post. Remember, bad examples of steroid use are just as useful for learning about steroids as good examples. Correct, I believe that as well. Plus, I get to send this to all my hating, natty friends who think juice is all it takes to have a good physique. Let's see, what else in here? Oh no, oh no. You need to ask yourself, why are you doing this? You are basically taking giant amounts of shit just to look like a fat dude to the average person. I cannot fully see your legs in your current photos. From what I can tell, they are shit. Massive body weight is unhealthy, period. Being 300 pounds lean versus fat is still bad. Your heart has to work harder still, etc. You need to cut down ASAP. I'm glad you posted this to show newbies that roids aren't everything and you need a good diet to even see results. Based on his weight, I'm sure he has great calves. Imagine doing 6 cycles for this. This has to be a troll post. If it isn't, it should be sticking on Reddit for anybody who thinks steroids are magic. Hate to be a dick to this guy, but he's going to need a quadruple bypass in the future given his trend usage and obesity. Like, holy fuck. Okay, so a lot of people are just kind of critiquing him, saying, good post. Some people are saying you're way too fat. Some people are saying, what the fuck, dude? Thick. This is sad. Put the fucking fork down. Okay, so yeah, this is where the edit comes in. He says, thank you for your comments. They've been difficult to read, which makes me realize you were all right and I am wrong. They have indeed been a wake-up call. Deep down, I knew that changes were needed for some time now, but my own ego obviously blinded me to it. I will not make excuses, and I made fundamental errors along the way. I'm going to cruise and actually do a real cut. I will post an update in 8 to 12 weeks time, but my progress, I will do my best to take good progress pics and record as much as I can. In the meantime, I hope others can see this and use it as a cautionary tale. Use it as the cautionary tale it is, especially those who are on the younger side. One last piece of advice would be that I encourage everyone out there to post a current body shot, especially if you do not have a coach and or someone looking out for you, as I did not. All right, so it sounds like he kind of like deluded himself into believing everything was fine. It isn't that he's fat necessarily. It's also that, like, having the least conducive baseline for packing on, lean tissue and, being insulin sensitive, etc. In addition to that, your actual health is going to take a bigger beating if you are at such an exorbitantly high, body fat percentage. Like the amount of fat this guy was holding, he's already, not healthy by even natural person standards, but you add a bunch of fucking tren and anadrol into the equation, like what do you think is gonna happen? This is like a ticking time bomb kind of scenario with these kind of dosages, these kind of compounds with the body composition in question. So yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot more to be said other than do your fucking research. And if you are going to blast, like ideally prepare your body accordingly. It's not that hard to get to a reasonable body fat, a reasonable place where you have the ability to tolerate this shit without your blood pressure going through the fucking roof. Basically, you don't want to be starting a cycle when your organ systems are already under a significant amount of stress. Like if you're natural, ideally you should have like essentially perfect everything. You shouldn't be under stress going into the drug exposure. It should be the complete opposite. It should be perfect going into potentially fucking everything up, but ideally not. If you choose everything correctly and you approach it in a smart way, you should have the least amount of fucking you up. And then when you go back to natural, you should be, very, very clean with recovery of organ systems rather than putting yourself back in a mildly stressed state already. So your baseline should be conducive in a health context to recovery rather than, something like this. So anyway, sounds like he gets it. So that's good to see. And, a good some good takeaways in it. Kind of a long, detailed post, but definitely some good takeaways for newbies that can be applied in a practical sense. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that one. Like, subscribe, comment, helps the algorithm. It's much appreciated when you guys do that. Follow me on Instagram at MorePlates, Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, couple podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below, including my TRT clinic. It's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. I recommended lab tests and diagnostics to stay on top of your health before you do shit like this. And anything else I'm associated with, it's all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.